I'm here to share with you the journey of the Ugalbar Foundation tonight, a Melbourne-based family foundation, and their funding of this big gaping hole. My name, as Ken said, is Stacey Thomas, and I'm the Client and Research Manager at the Myer Family Company in the Philanthropic Services team. My role sees me working with families all around the country and assisting them with the granting programs of their foundations. One such foundation that I have the real pleasure of working with is the Ugalbar Foundation. While I want to speak to you today about this foundation and the work that they have recently undertaken here in Bendigo, I also want to touch base on the broader issue of collaboration, as this is something that's not only pertinent to philanthropy, but Haven, HomeSafe and the whole homelessness sector. So established in 2002 by Sarah and Ballieu Myer, the Ugalbar Foundation has granted funds across the country in a diverse range of areas including the arts, conservation and environment and education. But their heart has always been with rural and regional communities, and subsequently the Foundation, being a key instigator and supporters of initiatives such as the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal and Volunteers for Isolated Students Education, has come back to that. The Myer family obviously has a long-standing link with the Bendigo community, with the death of Sydney Myer happening nearly 80 years ago. And the Ugalbar Foundation wanted to create a project, something that would honour the family's links with the area here. So with this in mind, in late 2011, the Board of Trustees formally identified Bendigo as an area that they might want to make a philanthropic contribution. While there were past links, obvious links to the area, the trustees weren't aware of the current profile and potential issues here that might warrant some philanthropic contribution. So we were commissioned to come in and undertake some research to help identify the needs that were happening here in the community at that time. I'm just going to briefly run through this research. It was broken into two parts, and part one was desktop research, where publicly available demographic information and stats were used to paint a picture of the greater city of Bendigo. We also called on the philanthropic community to provide us with high-level details of their philanthropy here in Bendigo. We wanted to try and ascertain how much grant making had occurred in the city over the last 10 years, and what focus areas this was in with what outcomes. Now, some of you might find it interesting that over 30 of Victoria's largest foundations were contacted, whose guidelines would allow them to grant here in Bendigo, and over 22 of those replied that yes, they had funded programs here over the last 10 years. What's most surprising is the total of funds. So in the last 10 years, Bendigo received $6.5 million in philanthropic funding across all focus areas, from animal welfare to education, from social justice to the arts. Now, this isn't a comprehensive figure. It doesn't harness corporate giving, business giving, the great work that the community volunteers do here in Bendigo. But I know I found this figure to be much lower than I had expected. So with all of this research in mind, all of the information that we had at our fingertips, part two was to come here and actually talk to people on the ground. We spent a couple of days with over 30 community organisations and their representatives discussing the research and what we had found, but then asking them their experiences. So what did they find when we presented what we had found? Where did they see the greatest level of need? Was that matched with the lived experience on the ground? Now, when all of this research was compiled and analysed, it resulted in quite a comprehensive report which we were able to then go and share with all of these organisations that had so kindly given us their time. It detailed the following: statistical information on issues such as population, housing, education, health, employment and welfare, and then the community's response to the information and their recommendations that the following issues be put before the trustees to consider funding: housing, community development, breaking the cycle of disadvantage, access to earning and learning opportunities, the way in which community responses can drive innovation, and issues associated with the redevelopment of the Bendigo Hospital. The paper also considered further issues such as collaboration and the role of non-profit organisations, philanthropy and government working together. When this was presented to the trustees of the Ugalbar Foundation for their consideration, much discussion was held as to the issues, with the community members' words ringing in everyone's ears. When you're looking at disadvantage, about getting young people to school, about people finding jobs, all of this is secondary if they don't have a roof over their head. As a result, the trustees agreed to allocate funds to the region in the area of housing and homelessness. It was at this point that the Ugalbar Foundation began working closely with Ken and his team here, looking at the different options available for a housing program that the Foundation could support and put their name to. And it's at this point that I'd like to deviate a little from our story and discuss collaboration, as this is the key to making this project a success. In philanthropy land, as I like to call it, collaboration is discussed often, but in reality it's not really practiced as widely as one would think. In its simplest form, collaboration is the process of working together to achieve a shared goal. When you put this in the philanthropic context, what you often find is a project is developed and led by one organisation and a funder, and then others come on board and co-fund it. More often than not, it isn't a true collaboration, as there's limited working together throughout the process, or there's a lot of working together, but very different goals for each organisation. Last year I sat on a working group with other trusts and foundations and the Office for the Community Sector, and together we developed and launched guiding principles for collaboration between government and philanthropy. Now, while this specific project was relating to government, I think there's underlying principles that are relevant for any kind of collaboration. There are 4 principles which need to be met for true collaboration, and I'd like to reflect on them now briefly with the Ugle Bar Foundation and Haven in mind. So the first one is creating the environment. There has to be a concerted effort to create the right kind of working environment for collaboration to work. Each party needs to be engaged from the beginning, ensure that expectations are clear and acknowledge each other's values, principles, and make sure that collaboration will meet each other's organisations' guidelines and agendas. The Ugle Bar Foundation met with Haven as part of a community consultation process throughout the research. We called on their expertise while exploring the issue of housing and homelessness, and then more broadly, when the project began to take shape, ensured that it met both ours and their agenda. The second principle is shaping the partnership and building the relationship. One needs to understand the other party's roles, priorities and limitations, ensure that there is time to develop trust and mutual respect, ensure that there is a commitment from the right people within each organisation to have a flexible approach. To date, there's been a complete commitment from all the trustees of the Ugle Bar Foundation, as well as the staff of the Myer Family Company, to help the Ugle Bar Foundation build this relationship, and it's been mirrored by all levels of staff within Haven. The third principle is decision-making and management practices. All parties need to agree to processes, communicate frankly, and document the history and practices. Ken, I think you and I, not to mention the other staff and the Foundation's trustees, can attest to frank discussions, ensuring we're all on the same page have probably formed the backbone of this project and its key successes to date. And lastly, the principle that is also important is evaluation and sustainability. In a successful collaboration with philanthropy, one needs to ensure that there's an evaluation framework and sustainability issues are addressed early on. So collaboration is a word that's easy to say but can be difficult to practice. I think having this most recent experience fresh in mind, when revisiting these key principles, the one thing missing for me is time. Collaboration is a long-term process. So while collaboration is a key to the success of the project we're speaking about today, it's also a key to reversing the trend of housing and homelessness here in Bendigo and around the world. Having a roof over one's head doesn't solve the problem. It's a great start, but there's so much more to the issue of homelessness that can't be fixed by just accommodation. Haven knows this only too well, and collaboration underpins the whole project that we're talking about tonight. So, nearly 2 years down the track of being asked to do some research into Bendigo by the Ugle Bar Foundation, where are we? The program that's been developed will see the construction of 21 dwellings, 19 two-bedroom and 2 three-bedroom units here in central Bendigo. While that in itself isn't necessarily unique, what is innovative is the programs underpinning the project, some of the things that Ken mentioned earlier, the collaboration that will bring it all together and have it as a one-stop housing shop. Targeting young to middle-aged people, there'll be 24-hour on-site support from trained staff. A social curriculum looking at issues such as budgeting, home management, personal care. Tenancy education, as Ken mentioned, to get people from residents to tenants. Job-ready programs to assist people in seeking and maintaining employment here in the region, and a tailored education program for young people who have exited the education system but want to re-enter. What makes this project even more appealing to the Ugle Bar Foundation is its sustainability model. So once the construction, fit-out and program set-up costs are complete, the ongoing funding of this program will be covered by the rental income and the National Rental Assistance Scheme. The Ugle Bar Foundation agreed to contribute $1 million to the program. $500,000 of this was originally issued as a challenge grant to be paid pending other philanthropic funders coming on board. And we're very pleased to say that that has already occurred with the help of people like you, Luke. Further philanthropic funding of over $600,000 has been secured, and Victoria's Office of Housing has also committed $4 million to the project. The decision-making process for the Ugle Bar Foundation has been one that was quite easy in terms of the trustees knowing what they wanted to do and acting on that. Having said this, the process has been long. Any kind of collaboration takes time, and we often see projects take years from the initial conversation to completion, and this will certainly be no different. But like the issue of housing and homelessness itself, collaboration, that long-term proposition, the Yuggabah Foundation has walked every step of this journey with other supporters and partners, and will continue to do so until this project is completed. Thank you.